Guys, this is another fairly lengthy video, and I know you like it when I do a TLDR at the front of those more lengthy ones. The main points that I'm going to cover in this video are all here, so stick around for the detail, but if you just want the headlines, there they are up on the screen. Enjoy. Guys, it's School Up here with another Division video. I've been inundated with questions about the new set, so I apologize that I haven't been able to make videos on these yet, as I needed to do the vendor reset video and the capable M1A videos first. PS, go and check out the capable M1A video now if you haven't done so. It will blow your mind. Today, I'm kicking off my coverage of the gear sets by looking at what I believe is the best of the new gear sets, the Lone Star. This set provides not only huge flexibility from its massive increase in ammo reserves and a nice boost to both shotguns and LMGs, but its instant reload mechanic has the potential to result in some truly spectacular DPS increases on SMGs and assault rifles depending on your playstyle. And let's not even talk about the M1A yet. Understanding how all of this works together is sort of quite complicated though, so bear with me while I sort of explain it all in full, just so you know exactly how strong this new set is. Of course guys, I put a huge amount of work into this video, including extensive theory crafting. You'll find all of the spreadsheet modeling in the description below, so check that out if that's your thing. Regardless, dropping a like would be hugely appreciated as it does help my channel grow. And of course, if you aren't yet a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button now for the best source of Division theory crafting you will find anywhere on the intertubes. Okay, let's start analyzing the Lone Star gear set by looking at each of the set bonuses. First up, we have the two-piece bonus, which is 100% ammo capacity. So the interesting thing about this is how it will be calculated, as it may be either multiplicative or additive. To explain what this means, let's say I have 100 ammo as a base amount, and then I'm using both a chest and a backpack that are each giving me 40% extra ammo. This would actually bring my ammo to a total of 180. Now, this two-piece bonus could be applied in one of two ways. It could be applied additively, bringing my new ammo count to 280, or it could be applied multiplicatively, which would actually bring my ammo to a total of 360, which is more than 3.5 times your base ammo amount. Needless to say, that's a lot of goddamn ammo, and while this amount may be overkill in PvE, and believe me, we'll come back to this point later, it's an absolute godsend in the Dark Zone, where running out of ammo is an all too constant affair. Regardless of whether this is multiplicative or additive, it's impossible to argue that this isn't a great set bonus to have, especially in the Dark Zone. More ammo means less downtime, which is both a quality of life feature as well as a real game changer when you're constantly running low on ammo. It's also worth noting that it's highly likely that you'll be able to equip this gear set to get the bonus, restock at an ammo box, and then change back to another gear set, and you'll still be able to retain the bonus ammo. That's of course if you can be bothered to do that. Now let's move on to looking at the three-piece bonus. A bonus 1000 damage to shotguns and LMGs. Right, so why did Massive do this? Well, let's talk about the obvious one first, LMGs. Long story short, LMGs are terrible. I know that there are so many of you out there that really love them, and I know already that my comments are going to be flooded by people saying like, hey, I have this great LMG and I shred everyone. Skill up, you don't know what you're talking about. I totally get that. I honestly love firing an LMG because they feel so great to use, but the fact is that they are by far and away the weakest weapon in the game, and the reason for this is that they are actually designed to deal damage over very long and sustained patterns of fire, instead of short, sharp bursts like an SMG or an assault rifle. The problem with this though is that there aren't any enemies in the game that survive for more than a few seconds against a properly geared player or group, so that style of damage dealing is really completely incompatible with the overall game design. It's also the case that we can't just stand up and fire away, forever, because obviously this is a cover-based shooter, and we need to constantly keep taking cover, otherwise enemy NPCs will eventually just wreck us. When we pop up, we need to deal damage fast, and LMGs are unquestionably the worst weapon for this. The bad news is that adding an extra 1000 damage per bullet does absolutely nothing to change this. I have this beautiful, magnificently rolled 204 military MK46 with swift, vicious, and brutal, and this thing does literally a quarter of the damage of my 1000 163 M1A and a little over half the damage of my 183 Vector. And if you don't believe me on that, please check the spreadsheet in the description below and you will see all of the DPS modeling there. There is just no saving it, so please do not think that this extra 1000 damage is going to make a difference, because it simply will not. So what about shotguns? Well, to be honest, shotgun damage is actually totally fine, and this extra 1000 damage will actually just serve to make shotguns even better than they already are from a damage perspective. The problem with shotguns isn't their damage, it's how close you need to be able to deal that damage, and how little room for error you have when you happen to miss your shots. They are a tricky weapon to use with a very high skill ceiling, so if you know what you're doing already, then you are going to have a very nice buff out of this. If however you struggle to use a shotgun, particularly on consoles where aiming is a lot harder, then this extra 1000 damage really won't make any difference to you at all. So overall, on the 3-piece bonus, extra damage on the LMG makes no difference at all, and extra shotgun damage will really only help those that knew what they were doing anyway. And with that, let's move on to the fantastic 4-piece bonus. So the 4-piece bonus essentially instantly reloads your weapon when you holster it. So you can empty your magazine, switch to another weapon without reloading, and when you switch back to your original weapon, you'll be fully reloaded and ready to go. To get some basic things out of the way, this will still draw on your ammo reserve, so it's not unlimited ammo, and yes, it works with all weapon types. It's not limited to shotguns and LMGs. So at first you're probably thinking that this is just a really nice quality of life change. I mean, reloading really doesn't take that long, right? So what's the big deal with not having to reload? Well, yes, absolutely, this is a nice quality of life change, but it's actually also a huge DPS increase if you think about it from the perspective of throughput. So before I go any further, let me take a moment to explain all of this. In the Division, your DPS is actually calculated by how much damage you deal over the time it takes for you to empty your magazine and to reload your weapon. So when you say that you have 100k DPS and it takes you about 3 seconds to shoot all of your bullets and 3 seconds to reload, what you're actually saying is, I deal an average of 100k damage per second over 6 seconds. That's essentially what that statement, 100k DPS, that's what that means. That is strictly speaking what damage per second means in the Division. So I've personally been an advocate in the past of calculating DPS very differently, because I don't think we should be including reload speed in this calculation. What I care about far more is burst DPS, which is essentially how much damage can I deal before I have to reload my weapon. This number is obviously going to be much higher than the number you would arrive at if you took reload time into consideration. So at this point, you're probably starting to connect the dots as to why not having to reload your weapon is actually pretty damn awesome. See, if I don't have to reload, I'm spending more time dealing damage, which means that my damage per second is going up. I'm not dealing more damage per bullet like I am with, say, Century's Call, but because I'm firing more often, my DPS is increasing. This is what I'm talking about when I say throughput. You are able to output more bullets faster, and that's where you get your DPS increase from with this gear set. So that's all well and good skill up, but just how much of an increase can I expect? Well, good question, YouTube viewer person. Using the magic of math, it's actually possible for us to fully model this total increase to a fairly precise point. So how do we do that? Well, imagine, if you will, that you are using an M1A and you run out of bullets in your magazine. It's time for you to reload, right? And that reload process on an M1A actually takes you 3.5 seconds, which is of course 3.5 seconds of you not dealing damage. Now, with the 4-piece Lone Star, you actually don't need to reload. All you need to do is switch to your secondary weapon and then switch back to your M1A, which will then be fully loaded. It takes about 1 second to switch a weapon, give or take a few frames, so this process of switching back and forward took you a total of 2 seconds, meaning that you've gained an extra 1.5 seconds of DPS time immediately. We can actually go even further than that though. If you are someone that really likes to use an M1A, you can actually use 2 M1As at the same time, and you can actually just switch back and forward between them. So you can empty one M1A and then switch the empty one to the new one, and then empty that one and then switch back to your old one, which is fully reloaded. Rinse and repeat for as long as you have ammunition. In this way, you're actually spending only 1 second per firing cycle instead of 2 seconds switching back and forward, or 3.5 seconds reloading your weapon. So you've actually gained 2.5 seconds of DPS time while doing this. Pretty cool, huh? So what does this equate to in terms of actual DPS? Well, if we're to use that example and math that out as I have done in my workings, you'll find that simply switching to your secondary weapon and then switching straight back to your M1A will actually net you an increase of about 30% in DPS, because the M1A actually has a fairly small magazine and a pretty long reload time. So if you use 2 M1As and then just cycle between the two of them, then the DPS increase is actually 49%, which is almost as much as Sentry's Call provides when it is fully stacked. Now, I'm not proposing that you use 2 M1As. I think that would kind of be pretty silly in a lot of instances, unless you really knew how to position yourself, in which case it would actually be, devastatingly effective. But I would be sort of definitely advocating not reloading your M1A and then just switching back and forward for an instant increase in 30% damage. I took the time to do the above calculations for one of each weapon type. Now, of course, reload speeds, mag sizes, and rates of fire vary within each weapon type, but they are broadly similar across the board, with perhaps the exception of LMGs, which have some very different magazine sizes. So I took 5 of the most commonly used weapons and modeled what sort of DPS increase you can expect to see using both the switch back and forward method and the use 2 of the same type weapon, and you can actually see the results on screen in terms of the percentage DPS increase you can achieve. So what can we learn from this chart? Well, firstly, we can see that an M1A with capable completely crushes everything in terms of DPS benefit provided. In a hilarious turn of events, this set makes the M1A even stronger than it already was, given that your DPS increase can be achieved without having to land headshots like you need to with the Sentry's Call. So yeah, the M1A wins again. You'll notice that the Vector sees almost no benefit from switch and switch back because its reload is actually really close to 2 seconds already. Using 2 vectors, however, is a really nice increase of around 30%, but you're obviously sacrificing the longer range capability of an assault rifle or marksman rifle if you go down that path. Still, for those of you that PvP with the SMG, it's a really nice, it's a weapon of choice in that context. So this is actually a fairly nice increase that you can bank on if you want to be able to keep firing without ever needing to reload. I think the real winner here though is assault rifles, which see an increase of 35% damage when you are using 2 of them. See, assault rifles are actually a pretty great weapon if you can manage the recoil and you can use them at the right range. I personally wouldn't have a problem with using 2 assault rifles if both of them were sort of well rolled, because I know that I can sort of deal really well with both up close and personal targets as well as more distant targets. The 35% DPS increase from this set is a nice boost that really pushes assault rifles into a much more usable place than anything the Striker's battle gear would have achieved. For shotguns, we have a nice and respectable increase in damage, but as I've mentioned before, shotguns really don't have a damage problem, and they really aren't used for sustained throughput style DPS. Still, having to not reload your shotty is really nice, given that they typically have a fairly chunky reload time. Where this set, though, will absolutely crush everything is if this guy ever makes it into the game. Meet the AA-12, a fully automatic shotgun that was teased during the trailer, but the devs have been silent on it ever since. The inclusion of such a weapon has to bring with it a fairly sizable reload time to balance out its automatic rate of fire. And if you can remove this huge reload time through this gear set, then you'll absolutely be laughing. Now, more than this though, you could in fact be wielding 2 of these things and be switching back and forward with only 1 second gap between being able to fire off a full auto shotgun, which would make for some really incredible throughput. It will be really interesting to see how massive balance this weapon and this set when they do make this weapon available. Finally, for the LMG, we see that there's just no saving it. LMG spends so much time firing that even their massive 5.5 second reload time doesn't really impact their total DPS DPS by much. Again, don't use LMGs, please, and don't expect this set to save them. Wait for the weapon balancing pass, which will come later. I'm sure that LMGs are going to get a hell of a lot of love. Now, you're probably wondering what the best two-piece bonus is to use with this set, and the answer is, it really depends on what you want. For survivability in both PvE and PvP, unquestionably, the go-to is going to be the two-piece final measure, which gives you 50% exotic damage resistance. And for pretty much anything else, you'd be going sort of reckless chest, savage gloves for damage, or two-piece strikers for enemy armor destruction. Strictly speaking though, reckless and savage are going to be your highest DPS options if that's what you're chasing. So just to make it real for you, I'll tell you that I will actually be using this set very, very often. When I'm soloing hard modes or grinding the Dark Zone, I'll probably be using this with 2 rolled SMGs or assault rifles, or 1 SMG and assault rifle, or maybe even a shotgun thrown in there as well if I get one I like. This is a really good solo set to use, and even in group settings it can work really well if someone else is bringing the Sentry's Call buff to targets. Honestly, if I were constructing a perfect 4-man team, I'd have one person using an electronics-based Sentry's Call set to bring both the Sentry's Call and the buffed sort of smart cover and tactical pulse, and I'd have 3 people using this set for maximum possible DPS throughput. In this way, Lone Star immediately establishes itself as one of the best and possibly the best gear sets in the game. And I've been talking a lot already about the whole, using 2 of the same weapon types. Now that would be really hard to do if you didn't get this bonus 100% ammo from the 2-piece bonus from this set. So this set is actually perfectly constructed to facilitate a gameplay style that does involve you using 2 of your same, your favorite type of weapon, 2 of them. So it's fantastic from that perspective. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll have other gear set reviews coming later on, but I think my focus for the coming week will be, first of all, to cover the patch notes, which are going to be available tomorrow. I want to get a hard mode incursion guide up, and then of course I just kind of want to enjoy the game. You can of course expect full coverage of patch 1.2 and beyond here on my channel, so if you like this vid, then please drop a like, and if you haven't already subscribed, do so now to receive in return my eternal gratitude and praise. 1.2 is out this week, guys, and I cannot wait. Until Tuesday, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the new Dark Zone. Bye-bye.